the reason that we have, upsets and frustrations and fear and all of these things. And what I've boiled it down to is there's some type of attachment going on. And so we're going to talk about that today and dig into what is this attachment that we so desperately need to hold on to. And more importantly, the ego is holding on to, right? We talk about ego tricks and egoic archetype here. And so for anybody new to me, I'm Jena Rodriguez. I'm a transformational mentor and growth strategist, and really helping you break through the nuances of the ego mind and help you self-lead, self-manage, increase your emotional intelligence, and ultimately create a profitable consciousness that helps you not only in your life, your business, your relationships, etc., and raise that level, right? And get to where you want to go. Bottom line is, all of these tips that I give you is about helping you get to where you want to go. And the more we're self-aware, the more we understand what's in our way, because you've said it, right? I get in my own way. Well, that's what we're talking about. What is that? What is that thing that's in the way? So I've boiled it down to there's usually some form of attachment, and that attachment can look like expectations. It can look like a belief system. It can look like, stories or narratives that we are creating or living with. And it can be requirements. It can be all these different things that when you really start to peel back the layers and start to look at, wow, I really am attached to having this thing. I'm really attached to being with this person. I'm really attached to a goal or an outcome. Those type of things rob us of the flow of life and the magic of life, honestly. So real quick, if you're here live, please say hello. And if you are on the replay, hit #replay, and I'll come back and say hello to you as well. So what is the attachment detachment? First of all, I'm the creator of the detachment method, which I will give you access to so you can work through that worksheet whenever you feel like you're getting stuck or you're procrastinating or you've got fear going on. This process will help. And so the thing about the attachments is I have recognized, not only in my life, but working with many people, is there's a pattern. And so I'm opening up my notes. I thought I had them open. Okay, so there's a whole list of things. So I'm going to go through probably about 20 different attachments that could possibly be going on, and then give you some tools to be able to rectify that. And so number one, you can be attached to thoughts. You can be attached to meaning, right? Like the meaning of the words we speak. Right, that's something that's really big, especially right now. I mean, you just get on social media every morning and you're scrolling through things and everybody has an opinion, and there's a lot of people arguing over the opinion. And I'm like, if everybody would just step back and realize that we have attachments to how we see things and how we word things and what meanings we make of words, and then we might give a little more grace to people, right? The other thing we have attachments to, this is a big one, is expectation. And the egoic mind is always looking for certainty. I say that often. And in order to do that, it has to create this story and narrative and expectation of so that it knows where it's going. It has a sense of direction, right? And so expectations can get us in a lot of trouble. And if you notice, when you feel disappointment or when you feel frustrated, I would gather there's typically an expectation on the other side of that. So that's an attachment. Attachment to outcomes, very big, right? We're all very goal driven, high achieving, got to get it done. Right? Got to get the to-do list checked off. And those outcomes that we are creating, if we're attached to them, I'm not saying don't create them, right? Set the intention, create the outcome, see it, believe it, vision it, right? However, the moment you attach yourself to it and it has to be that way, then you shut yourself down. Right? Then you're in that space and that energy versus the flow down the river. And I always, last year there was a big kind of epiphany. I've spent my life, feeling like I'm climbing up a mountain, right? And, coming from bottom up, right? And trying to get to the top. The top is the answer. The top is the outcome. that is going to solve all my problems. And then I realized last year that effortful direction, right? Just imagine climbing a mountain. Funny enough, I climbed a mountain this weekend, went to Mammoth Lakes, and we did about a 6-7 mile hike, and talk about physically challenging, mentally challenging, and just another recognition of how kind of an analogy or the picture of life is we're climbing up this mountain with all this effort. And then down below was this beautiful creek and this, river. And then it ended at this gorgeous rainbow. It was called the Rainbow Waterfall, and literally rainbows just live there. And it's beautiful. And so if you just flow down the river, right? The gold is at the end of the river. And so we hold on to the boulders. We hold on to those attachments that come up along the way. And if we just start to detach from those attachments, then we start to flow down the river so much more with ease and grace and joy, and enjoying the experience versus like struggling through the experience. So attachment to outcome is a big one. And then you have attachment to beliefs. Of course, we create our beliefs, and beliefs are simply thoughts that we say are true for us. And so the first one I started with, attachment to thought, right? It's like we have a thought and all of a sudden it's the only way we can see it. And then we turn it into a belief, and then we make a decision that says this is the way it is. And so we can start to question our own beliefs and our own thoughts and start to get aware of what those are, because we can edit them, right? Beliefs are editable, but you got to do the inner work to understand where it's coming from, where's the attachment coming from, and then being able to really surrender and release that emotional attachment to it. And then there's attachment. What about the attachment to drama? Any of you attached to drama? You may not recognize it, because then that would be telling on yourself, right? So let's just check in with ourselves. Maybe you're attached to the drama and the chaos and having everything, be a particular way so that you're always overcoming something. And this one's kind of a deeper level of understanding. But when you have an attachment to chaos and drama, there's usually a sense of this is my familiar, and if I don't have enough of it, I have to go find more of it. And so you create the drama, you create the chaos, you create the overwhelm, because somehow, even though it sounds a little sick, you're familiar with it, and it's easier that way. And so, even though it's effortful and struggle, right? So just check in. Are you actually attached to the drama and the chaos of life versus making things really easy for yourself? And so people aren't creating necessarily the drama for you. You're creating the experience of drama. And that's when we get to look deeper and go, wow, why does the egoic self, my egoic self, require this? What is it up? Why is it needing that sense of drama in my life? And so then we get to start to peel back those layers and start to get comfortable with things not being so hard. And so that's another big one I see. And of course, attachment to fear is clearly prevalent right now, especially. But I think it's just something, our egoic self uses to past project, right? Project those back previous experiences and evidence and all of that onto our future, present or future. And then we start to future trip into the what ifs, right? Fear is just like we're past projecting and thinking like, oh, I've been there, I don't want to be there again. Or I've seen it on a movie somewhere. I've seen it in someone else's life. And so now I know it's possible, and then I project it onto my future and worry about all the what ifs. And so fear is an attachment as well. And sometimes the ego is really comfortable with that too. It's like, hey, if I can hang out in fear, I can procrastinate, I can hang back, I can sit still, I can feel stuck, right? And I know it's painful to stay stuck. And that's the thing, the whole conversation about like, why am I in my own way about whatever I'm trying to accomplish? And so much of it is the attachment to fear, the attachment to avoiding whatever you might have to experience. And the beauty of this is we're creating that experience in the first place. So another big attachment. Okay, here we go. I'm only about halfway through my list. Okay, attachment to the past, right? Which is it can be part of fear, but more importantly, especially when you're in relationships, if you hold the grudge or you hold on to a past experience without the forgiveness, and you're holding that as truth, and that's the only way, and I can't forgive that, I can't overcome that, I can't let go of that, then you're holding on to that past. Maybe you've come through a lot, such as myself, in life, and you're holding on to that past as part of your identity, and that is the ego. That's not your true self. That's not your higher self. That's the egoic self. That's the false self, holding on to the past. All of this is egoic, by the way. And so when you're holding on to the past, how can you ever be present? Right? How can you ever let go and be present? It's interesting, after 20, 30 plus years, won't say exactly how many, I almost feel like my first half of my life isn't real anymore. It feels like a very faint memory, even though I speak to it, I share it, I let people know what my story is and my journey, but it's almost like it's just a past thing, and I've let go of that, and I'm like, there's clearly work to be done. I'm not saying I'm completely healed and all traumas have been released, because that's a lifelong process. However, it's very it's just fleeting. It's not something that's present, right? And so you have to look at how heavy is past experiences, past traumas, past regrets, all of that. How heavy are you holding on, and how attached are you? And because that's a place to work. That's the place to get free of, because how can you ever be present and certainly create the future that you want if you're attached to the past? So that one is a big one, a biggie as well. All right, attachment to control. Yes, I am a recovering control freak. Give me a shout out if any of you are. And so control is obviously an egoic process, an egoic behavior, so that you don't have to feel out of control. And it creates that familiarity, that certainty, and the predictability that our egos are constantly looking for. And if you have an attachment to control, and then it usually ripples into attachment to outcome, attachment to the meanings of things, attachment to the thoughts, right? It's like, how can I control the situation? And just recognizing, forgiving yourself, and understanding that the sense of control is an illusion. It's not real. There's really no control out there. And it also hijacks your momentum. And the more you try to control situations, the more you're repelling the thing that you want. So say you want, you desire something bigger in your business. A lot of you guys are entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders of some sort, and you've got these big visions and goals, and you're just not there yet. I would check in on this. How much are you trying to control it? How much are you trying to say when it has to happen? How much are you trying to, orchestrate all of it and plan? Like, I have a client that she, something we're working through is perfectionism and control. They kind of sometimes go hand in hand. Certainly it does for me, right? Recovering perfectionist, recovering control freak. And so when she, started working with me, we started to recognize the perfectionism. And I'm sorry, that's the wrong link. I was going to give you this one. And we noticed that she was planning everything, like every single day, every single weekend activity, every vacation. There was just a lot of planning, not a whole lot of spontaneity. And so I encouraged her, I challenged her, I gave her a truth and dare. That's what I call my challenges. And the truth is, we have an attachment, right? There's an attachment to how it has to be, so that she feels safe, and that she feels okay, and that she feels normal. Like, that's her normal. And so I challenged her. She was going to, I think, the beach or just an outing on the weekend or whatever it is. And I said, let go of all the planning, right? Like wake up and just to be in the moment and enjoy the process and be present and don't worry about the plan, right? Don't worry about it. You know, it's a day off, just go be with a day off. And she did. And it just like really started to transform how she is starting to approach her life so that she makes space for that magic to happen, that joy to happen, right? When you're in that plan and the plan doesn't go as planned, right? What happens? You get frustrated, you get irritated, you get, you know, disappointed. Those are all signals that an attachment is going on. And so I highly encourage you to you can make plans and you can have goals, but then you got to let go of them. You got to let go of the tether that holds so tight. Another example I always use is when I jumped out of an airplane, and man, I was excited and fearful and all that, right? But I was up in the air, right, in this airplane. I don't know how many thousands of feet in the air we are. I have a tandem, so I have a guy on the back attached to my back, right? And he's going to make sure the parachute is pulled. All that's happening. But the egoic mind, when he said, sit on the edge of the plane, I had all the instructions, you know, everybody taught me what to do. But as soon as I got to the edge of the plane and my feet are dangling outside of the door, and I'm initially just, you know, here's the door. So I'm holding on to the door, and he goes, you have to cross your arms, cross both arms in front of you, or we're not going anywhere, right? And I was like, that makes no sense. It makes no sense to the egoic mind. There's no way, right? And so I kept doing this. I kept holding, like, okay, one arm. If I just stay attached to one arm, then I'm safe. And he's like, no, you got to let go. Like, you got to literally cross your arms, hold on for your dear life to yourself, and he's going to pushes out of the plane. And the point of this is every time we hold on, right, we're just holding on. Let me just hold on to this a little tighter. Okay, I let go of that, but now I'm holding on to this, right? It keeps you from the glory. And the beautiful part of skydiving certainly was I let go, and as soon as he pushed us out of the airplane, it's literally 22 years ago, and I completely feel the experience and how amazing it was and how glorious it was. And like, it was magic. It was like the best experience ever. And I can still relive it to this moment. Right. And that is the point, is like, if I hadn't let go, if I had just like held on and never let go of the side of the plane, right, the tether, then I would have never experienced what I got to experience. And the beautiful thing of that story is we were over like fields of corn or something in Illinois is where I was. I happened to be in Illinois on a job project. And as you know, we pulled the chute, and as we floated down, because then you slow way down, right? You're going like the speed of light right before you pull the chute. And as soon as we pulled the chute, it was pure. There was no clouds. The sun, as I fell, the sun fell behind the horizon. And that's what I consider a very godly moment. I was like, I wrote a poem immediately after it. It was so inspiring, so life-changing. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm falling to the horizon with the sun, right? It's like in tandem. And it was just like one of the most beautiful experiences. So that's the part that you rob yourself of, are those beautiful experiences when you're trying to hold so tight to how it is and all of these different attachments. Okay, so attachment to control is a big one, right? Another one, attachment to relationships. Codependency falls into this category. You know, just having to have the relationship in a particular form, having to have it in a particular way, having to experience in a particular way, all that. And when you can just find yourself emotionally attached to people, then when they leave or when they go away, we suffer. When they exit in some way, whether it's just changing the form of the relationship. And a lot of times we don't allow the beauty of what the relationship is meant to be to be actualized, because we're so attached to it, right? And we, especially if you're in, you know, I'm almost 20 years married this year. Is it 20? 19 married, almost 20 years together, whatever it is. It's getting close to 20. And one of the biggest things that I think has made us work is that we've come to a place. It doesn't mean it didn't, we had to get to this place, is that we don't have this need for each other. Like, we're very independent people. We support each other. We love each other, all that, of course. And we celebrate the fact that we allow that space, right? That it's not about being attached or codependent or jealous or insecure or any of that. And it doesn't mean that there's not things that we still have to work through, but it's that place of really elevating your consciousness within your relationship. And so if you have a really heavy attachment to a relationship, you got to check yourself. And we got to heal the stuff that has you feel like you need to be attached. And there's usually early childhood dynamics going on. There's emotional suppression usually going on. And you just start to keep, notice, are you repeating patterns in your relationships? Certainly your romantic ones, let alone your friendships, or you're attracting people to try to solve a dynamic that maybe you were fatherless in childhood. And so you spend your life looking for the father dynamic in other people. That's an attachment. That's an unconscious attachment. So that's an example. So there's just all kinds. Look, I'm giving you high level attachment ideas so that you can kind of check in on yourself and do an inventory. But certainly there's all these deeper level nuances, and of course the inner work, the transformational work to resolve them, to let go of them. But the first step is awareness. So if I'm giving you any kind of clue as to maybe we have some attachment going on that's not allowing me to live into my fullest, greatest potential, then this is the list that you get to look at. Okay, another one. Attachment to guilt. Now, guilt is an ego trick. And if you download this method, the detachment method, you'll get all 14 ego tricks. Excuse me, by the way. And so guilt, though, is that experience that we turn on as our egoic self so that we don't have to take ownership of our choices, our feelings, the situation, whatever it is. And basically the way I describe guilt is as an ego trick. It's if we can feel bad enough, then we don't have to take ownership. It's kind of like if you can just be guilty enough and sorry enough and apologetic enough, then we don't actually have to own that this happened, or that we chose this behavior, or we chose this option. It's like, how guilty can you be for not choosing something that someone wants for you, right? It's like, that's a place to look. It's a very sensitive subject because it is sensitive. It's that kind of martyr approach to trying to protect yourself. And I'm a mom. I've gone through it. Now it was in the early years. My children are now teenagers or older, but in the early years, and I know a lot of moms might be listening, and you have the mom guilt. Yeah, this is the place to look. If I can feel bad enough about not being with my children or not doing enough or whatever, then I don't have to own that I want to live my own life, that I want to be my fullest self, that I want to do things for me. I want to take care of me. And so that's the rub that we tend to go through when we talk about mom guilt. And the truth is what you desire and what you want, and living from that example of owning your choices and owning your position of where you want to be and what you want to do and how you want to live your life. And some of that, is okay, right? It's like, I give you permission. But I think that's where guilt also comes in. We don't give ourselves permission to have what we desire and have it all. Why not have it all, right? You can absolutely be an entrepreneur and a mom. I've done it for, 14 years, right? So it's all inside of the attachment to what we make all that mean. So we have to look deeper into what's creating the guilt. So the guilt is just a signal that the ego is trying to protect you from something. And then we have to go find out what is the attachment. And so another one, attachment to the shoulds. I should be doing more. I should be doing this. I should be waking up at 5 a.m. and running 5 miles. Like the shoulds can always knock us off our game. So I'm sure you have a couple of them. And so just check in. It's like, Shoulds is another ego trick, and it's a signal that something deeper is going on, or there's a lack of ownership. If should is also kind of, it goes hand in hand with guilt, and it's an idea of, not really owning what you really want to do versus the should, right? I should be doing more of this when I really don't want to. I want to do this, right? So it's that kind of internal conflict that goes on. And if we start to just kind of identify the attachment, understand what's driving the should in the first place and the resistance, then we can start to make more sense of it and choose freely. So that's another one. Attachment to reaction. Right? The egoic self is very reactive. The higher self is more responsive to circumstances, situations, conversations, etc. And so if you're attached to always being reactive, you got a lot of egoic self going on, and we got to, start to peel back that layer and take a look. Attachment to stories is another one. Kind of mentioned that at the top of this conversation. And excuse me. Stories, of course, are just the truth that we create, right? And so if you're attached to the judgment and the story and the way it's got to be, then now we get to look at that as well and rewrite the story. That's it. And then you can be attached to that one. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is if you're attached to the story and you're not willing to budge, then you're usually blocking the flow of your greatest potential, of your zone of genius, of having everything that you say you want, right? All those desires that you list, all the goals that you have written down, and they're not happening. This is a place to look for sure. All of these attachments are obviously a signal that something's off, and that's why it's not happening for you. But stories is another big one. Maybe you need to rewrite the story so that it serves you. And we're not going to let go of necessarily all of this. I mean, it's like you've got to recognize the attachment that you have that's unconscious. This is all about raising your consciousness above the line, right? It's like taking you from unconscious to consciousness is what this is all about. And 3 more: attachment to excuses or justification. Yep, this is a doozy. Right? If you're attached to your excuses and your reasons and you're justifying, then you want to take a look at, like, what am I really afraid of? Like, what am I really worried about? Because if you can make enough reasons and excuses and justify everything that you're doing or saying or believing, then there's something you're trying to keep yourself from experiencing usually. So that's another big one. Attachment to assumption. How about that? Man, we live in a lot of fiction. We live in a lot of assumption. It's human. It's a human condition. I'm not immune to it. But it is that kind of like, am I assuming, is this a fact? Or have I gotten the fact? So how much do you spend assuming someone's going to react a particular way? How much do you spend assuming because you've worked with a client, they're going to behave, like if you have to give them some bad news, that they're going to behave the same way that they did 2 months ago or a week ago, right? You're bringing the assumption into the equation and not creating that, wow, what if because, part of that also is you show up to that conversation and trying to emotionally prepare yourself for it. And then you're blocking the possibility that it's easy and it works, right? Everything's workable. And this is definitely coming from an example that a client of mine we were working on, because she was like super attached. Like, I know this is to be true because he's always overreacted. Always. That's another assumption. Always, right? Always overreacted. So if I give him this news, it's going to be another overreaction. But then we're past projecting onto the future. And then we show up to that conversation in emotional preparation versus allowing, wow, what if I'm a different person? I'm a different energy. I'm not protecting myself from his reaction before it even happens. And I just show up and be like, and just receive them wherever they are, right? Just receive them. But then, you're showing up differently. You diffuse the situation. If they react, they have ego going on. Just know it. Just be aware. And then you can have a clearer conversation, a calmer conversation. So that's an example. Attachment to assumption. So today, your truth and dare is to, of course, identify which attachment do you have going on right now, if not all of them, if one or the other, or what have you, and then download this free tool, the detachment method, where you can walk through 7 steps to detach from that attachment. And you also have a bonus in there of a list of all of the egoic tricks, ego tricks. So the other thing is, I love to share the quiz on these videos, and the quiz is actually going to help you self-identify which egoic archetype is predominantly happening for your ego, right? Your ego has go-to ego tricks. It has go-to ego tricks. And when you can identify what those are, then your awareness just 10x's, right? Your awareness to it goes through the roof. And so take the quiz, figure out, what are you, the realist, the martyr, the illusionist, or the rebel? And then beyond the quiz, I actually give you a quick tutorial video, a free video, so you can understand what makes up that egoic archetype. And then you'll also still get access to the detachment method and the tricks and all that if you haven't downloaded it yet. So either way, these tools are there to support you in detaching from your attachments, uncovering what the egoic self is trying to do to protect you, to keep you safe, to keep you in place. Because when you say, I want to get out of my own way, that's what's happening, is the egoic self is keeping you completely safe, it thinks, right, in place, and now it's time to outsmart it. So outsmart your ego, take the quiz. That's how you outsmart it in the beginning, is to understand what it's doing. And then as you start to process through and recognize the ego tricks, then you can detach from those attachments as well. And of course, always reach out to me. Let me know how this is serving you. Let me know which archetype you are. And I can always, help you through that process if you need more attention to it. All right. Have a great day. I can't wait to hear what your attachments might be. We all have them, so don't be shy. Let us know. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Let's go get our brave on.